The new topic, Docker volume. So till now, what we have seen how to create a Docker image. Okay, then we saw how to run that Docker image. We can push that Docker image to container registry. Okay, and then we can pull and use it. Okay, but Docker by default is ephemeral in nature. Ephemeral means whatever data we store inside it. Okay, uh, if due to some reason, if the pod gets restarted or it is moved to some other, not pod, we can say container. Pod is with respect to Kubernetes. We'll see that later. So Docker by default is ephemeral in nature, and whatever data we store it on it is temporary. That is ephemeral. So there is a need for a volume. Okay, we need to attach a volume to that Docker container if you want that all the data should be always persistent. Okay, persistent means even after the Docker container gets restarted, or if it is deleted. Okay, and if you want to recreate it with the same data, then Docker volumes are very useful. And how we create Docker volume? Okay, there are multiple ways. One of them is creating a directory on that same host itself. Okay, only for learning purpose it is good. And other method would be using some third parties volumes, like we'll be seeing in the next exercise. We'll be creating a AWS EBS volume and mount it inside the Docker. Okay, but the basic one also we should know. So let me start the exercise. Okay, so what we are doing here is now we are creating a Docker volume and we'll attach it to a Docker container. Sudo docker volume ls. This is the command to check if any existing volume is there or not. Okay, so if you see the output is blank, that means there is no other volume present on this DevOps VM, or you can say a Docker host. Okay, so let's create our first volume. Docker volume create data wall. Okay, so we have created a volume called data wall. List its content. Okay, so we now have a data volume. Okay, even though we are saying it as a volume, it is actually created inside a directory structure. Okay, here if we go here on this location using root user sudo su will become root, and we'll do cd. So actually at this location it is created. So I'll go one directory back. So Docker store all its details here. Actually varlib docker, when we go inside varlib docker, container details are there, image, network, and some other details are there. Similarly, the volumes are also there. If you go to varlib docker volumes, we can see the volume which we created now. Okay, it is nothing but a simple directory structure. Okay, it is considering it as a volume, or you can also consider it as a disk. Okay, the virtual file system, you can say. So this is the place where the volume is created, but it is empty. Okay, as it is empty, we need to add some data into it. Okay, so I'll create a direct file here in this directory, file1.txt. Okay. mm, I'm adding a data here, persistent. This is the persistent data or file is created. Now let's get back to our home directory of the user, that is Ubuntu. Now we'll create a volume, okay, means a container with a volume. Okay, so the command would be, so we already created a volume, we created a file inside that volume, and now what we are doing, we are just running a container, okay, in a detached mode. Okay, so hyphen d option we have already seen. Now I'm introducing a new option called hyphen v. Okay, hyphen v means it is related to mapping a volume. Okay, so we have data wall. Okay, data wall is the volume which we created, and inside that container will mounting that data wall inside app data. Okay, inside slash app slash data, this data wall will be mounted inside the container, and we are giving a name to the container as web server using httpd image to create that web server container. Okay, so it created the container, and inside the container we can see the contents of that volume. Sudo docker ps, okay, and docker volume ls. Okay, so volume we have created, we created the docker container. Now go inside the docker container, sudo docker exec hyphen it. Okay, we can also take the name or the container id. Open an interactive terminal and for the container, we are inside the container. Now where did we mount the data? Slash app slash data. Okay, go to cd slash app slash data, and we can see cat file1.txt is already there. Okay, this is persistent data. Okay, so whatever we have it in a volume or whatever we write it here, even if I append a new line there, here it will be appended there. This is new line added inside the container. Just save it, log out, and sudo su cd var lib docker. Okay, and inside that we have volumes, and in volumes data wall ls cat data underscore into file.1. Okay, so whatever we write it inside the container, it will be always safe here in a data wall. Okay, so actually there are three types of volumes. Okay, first one is the named volume which we created just now, docker volume, create my volume. Then the second one is bind mount, okay, in which a host directory. We will not create a volume like this which we created now. A simple host directory means using mkdir will be creating a directory and will mount it at some particular location inside the container. Okay, then we have this anonymous volume, okay, and tmpfs volume, but these two are not so important. Okay, so the bind mount and the name mount we generally used. Okay, and why volumes are required? Okay, so for data persistent, as the nature of the docker container is the data on it is not permanent, it is ephemeral in nature. That's why there is a need for data persistent, and docker volumes helps us. We can share the volume among multiple containers. Okay, it will be an isolation from the host. Okay, so in short, the security and encapsulation is achieved. Okay, it is also useful for efficient backup and migration. It simplifies the data management performance optimization can be achieved. Okay, and it is also used for collaboration between various projects. Okay, so this was our overview for Docker volumes. Okay, and name volumes will be covering.